Adete ole fun wara, ṣùgbọ́n lè dá wàrà nù. You know, I read earlier about the gentleman in Enugu that did something fantastically great. Like, it's fantastic. He saw something not working. He spoke to the Waste Management Authority in Enugu, and they fixed it. I was here. I said it earlier. That's something to learn from. Instead of complaining, he did something. Everybody should just do that thing where they are from. Just do it. Let me play you something from Ngozi Adichie.
It paints all of us in a very, very bad light, and for all kinds of reasons. And so it worries me very much. It worries me very much. You know, Igbo land has changed. People now have their wine carriers in Lagos and in Abuja. Not because that's their preference, but because they're terrified of coming back. And for me, it's a thing of not just sadness, but shame. You know, Igbo land, and this is obviously a region, not just a region I love, but a region I have studied. Right? I've been interested, so I've read a lot about our history, and this is not who we are. Right? This is not who we are. This kind of senseless disregard for human life. So I do worry that it will get worse, yes.
What do you think are the triggers for all the atrocious things we're seeing around us?
Do you know, honestly, I've thought about this very often, and people will say life is hard, but life has been hard for many years, and Igbo people did not do this kind of thing. I think that there is a lot that maybe one can blame political activity for. You know, I think that if you incite certain things politically, in some ways you can open a box and something sort of leaps out that you can't put back in the box. Right? So but I don't think that I know for sure. It's something that has really puzzled me. In addition,
I want to play you one of the reasons this has happened. Take a listen to this. It's the same person, no? Take a listen.
And so suddenly in the north, which is mostly Muslim, you had mass killings of people, right? And those people were Christians, and they were mostly Igbo. Igbo is an ethnic group, and that's my ethnic group. And so that really is sort of the basis for the war, because after the killings, that first started in the 1940s, there were some in the 1950s, and then in the 1960s. We don't know how many people were killed. There's some people who say that there were up to 30,000. Mm-hmm. We don't know, but we do know that almost every family in Igbo land was affected by the massacres in the north. And so what happened was Igbo people then decided, you know what, we're being killed in Nigeria because of our ethnicity, because of our religion, and so we don't want to be part of Nigeria anymore. And so they decided to secede from Nigeria and call their country Biafra. And I think the story might have ended there, if not for the fact that Nigeria's oil happens to be in the area that was Biafra. And the oil had just only been discovered. And so Nigeria said, no, you're not going because we want the oil. And that's really what the war was about. So Nigeria fought to keep Biafra in sort of to stop the secession of Biafra. And Biafra was fighting for independence. And it lasted for 3 years. It was a humanitarian disaster. And I think it shaped so much in the world.
Guys, if you're looking for, I mean, with all due respect, I'm not trying to trivialize, you know, what people went through, because, I mean, people went through stuff and it was terrible. But if you're trying to understand why that second interview happened, sorry, that first interview I played, if you want to understand why that's happening, it's because of this second interview. If you are raised to believe propaganda and you grow up regurgitating the same, it will be very easy for you to raise people who may not have whatever it is that cautions you, or who are exposed to that same propaganda, but without that thing that inhibits you from doing certain things. They don't have such inhibition, so they can do anything they want to do. Therefore, if you don't understand that there's a direct correlation between what people are going through right now with the things that she said about the war, then you really are not ready to look at the problems of the Southeast. Not today, but it's not going to, it doesn't even, this is the first time I'm listening to the entire thing. I've never listened to more than 4 seconds of that clip. The moment she started mentioning Muslim Christians, I was out. And I think it was more than 4 seconds. When she started mentioning Muslim Christians oil, I was out. The oil, I didn't hear her say it. People just typed it in the comment section. The Muslim Christian, I heard it, and I was like, really? If you teach young people these things, if you teach people this narrative, do you know it's going to be very easy for you to raise IPOB? And by the way, when they asked her for what's the reason for what's happening right now, she just like Obi, nobody sees anything wrong with IPOB. They will tell you, oh, it's because the political leader are not doing the right thing. See, whatever you want to do in your region is fine. I'm just saying that if you are celebrating your cultural festival outside your ancestral space, don't you see that as a problem? And how do you solve it if you're not even going to acknowledge the fact that you're literally feeding off of this narrative of they did this to us, they did that to us, they did to us because we are Christians, because of the oil. Which oil? More than 50% of the oil in Nigeria at the time was in Rivers province, present-day Rivers State, and Bayelsa. That's where the oil was. About 30% was in Delta, was in the Midwest. The region was broken into three on the 27th of May 1967. Biafra was not declared until the 30th of May 1967, which means that the idea of even declaring Biafra was over Nigeria's territory, apart from the fact that it's declaring his own inside region. Have you ever asked yourself, just a simple question, have you ever asked yourself, how come there's never been agitation for an Igbo nation? Why do you need Biafra that bad or badly? Why are you talking about oil that you are not producing? And the idea that you were Christians, who were the first Christians? Who brought Christianity to the East? Was it not Yoruba people? Who was Yoruba people brought Christianity? It is what it is. 1857. And by the way, let me just quickly say something. It was before the Catholic mission, oh. Bishop Ajayi Crowther and his team of missionaries got to Onitsha in 1857. I have a book that he wrote in 1866. There's another one he wrote shortly after that. There's a preaching at the banks of River Niger. Fantastic stuff. But if you're saying that they're doing it because you are Christians, Abba, are the Yorubas not Christians? Are there no Christians in the north? The Middle Belters, are they not Christians? Yakubu Gowon was a Christian. Guess what? Read the book by Neville Graham Douglas. By the way, if it's not very big, it's small but powerful. You can get that book for free in the Telegram channel. It's a pamphlet. So if you go to Radio Meet Global on Telegram, go to the library, you'll be able to find that book. Neville Graham Douglas said, and I've said this here before, Ojukwu, when they were telling him about what he was doing, he said to them, Jack will not fight because he's a Christian. Those were Ojukwu's words. That Yakubu Gowon will not fight because he's a Christian. Okay, this is how people get in trouble. So Yakubu Gowon, who was fighting, was a Christian. How come he's now fighting you because you're a Christian? When you have this narrative, and you say it over and over again, you read it in books, you sell the books and make money, Abi? Okay. You make movies out of it. If you see me talking like this, sincerely, I have young people around me who are Igbos. And I'm not saying this because I want to say I have Igbo friends. No, I'm saying it because I cannot afford to have them become victims just because somebody said they were, because they are not. They are citizens of Nigeria, just like my children who are Yoruba. They have the same rights, but they have limits in Yoruba land, just like my children have limits in their own land. And that doesn't have to give them victim mindset. This propaganda, they hate us, everybody hates us. What do you think that thing does to people? You can blame Nnamdi Kanu and say things, but at the end of the day, it's really his fault. If you grow up being taught that thing, people hate you, everybody hates you, people hate you, and then you now look around, any small thing that is not available in your space, nobody tells you that it's because of their own irresponsibility. They blame the other person for it. After a while, will you not go to the other person and say, they say you are my problem, therefore I'm going to deal with you? That's what's happening. And by the way, you don't have to, when you say it's not rocket science, it is not rocket science. The lies around Nigeria history is so bad. And by the way, if you hear me and people say things, why are you always talking about? If we are talking about the war, I can't talk about the Nigeria civil war without mentioning the Easterners. It's not because of hate. It's just because the more you read, and let me tell you the saddest part of this. I've read many books from the East, and I think may God forgive those older men, no? May God forgive them, because they died even with that narrative. They did not change the narrative, even though they knew it not to be the truth. You know how you get drunk on your own Kool-Aid. Never get high on your own supplies. That's what these guys that sell drugs in the US, all these drug pushers. That's what they say. You hear it in movies. Never get high on your own supply. Never get high on your own supply. Never get high on your own supply. The fix in Nigeria's issue is propaganda. Biggie Smalls. Yes, never get high on your own supplies, because once you do, you are done for. What's happening right now is this: people have taken the fix. And let me tell you something. On one hand, it's difficult for me to blame the young Igbo people, because it's what they've been told. I have the books. That's why I said it's important to read books from different places, so that also, maybe that's why I'm also like some things I can't say, because I'm like, maybe it's not even your fault, you don't know, because you read the books and just find it is everywhere. The claim she mentioned when she said we don't know the number, but some people say it's 30,000. There's a reason. When it's communication, and she's good at it. When this woman, let me ask you a question. They asked Chimamanda. They didn't even ask her. She just said, a lot of people died. We don't know the killings, but some say 30,000. Then that's it. If you were to ask the interviewer how many people died, what number do you think she's going to tell you? Just this is an exercise. What number do you think she's going to tell you? That a lot of people died, we don't know, or will she tell you a number? If you know, if whatever your answer is, there's no right or wrong answers. Just type whatever you think is right. If you go and ask that woman that you are the one interviewing her, how many people died in the north? What will she say? She'll say 30 exactly. She will not mention that we don't know the number. You know why? Because when you speak like this, you are not. You know exactly what you are doing. I mean, we know these things. You know exactly what you're doing. So you throw that in because that's the narrative you want to get out. Because that's not the only number, by the way. The people suffer from the East, absolutely. Unfortunately, a lot of people died. A lot of Igbos were killed. And it's a terrible episode in Nigeria's history. Terrible. And this is why we don't want to have that kind of thing happen again. And that was not the war. This was just people getting angry after just saying we've had enough. They've just had enough. And they just went off in September of 66. This is just we've had enough. There was one precursor, not like a prelude or prologue in May. By August, they revved it up. By September, they just went all out. Like, we are tired. They've been taking it in since January. It took them 8 months to actually unleash. Guys, whatever the Northerners did, it was terrible. But that was a direct result of what they had been taking since January of 1966. They took it. They were insulted. They were dragged. They were maligned in their own land. The same thing that's happening right now. They were taunted. They were told that it's only Nzogu that can knock sense into them. They played with pictures of their heroes in their land. It's not different from what you are seeing on social media. Anything you are seeing right now, nobody today. Just insulting people. Those people got angry 4 For the first 4 months, they didn't do anything until Decree 34 of Decree 34 of May 24th, 1966. That was when they first got angry and showed something and like, let's show you that we are not dumb. Then they calmed them down. By August there, when they saw what the soldiers did, by September, what happened in August was what the soldiers did. What happened in September was because of what the folks in the East did to Hausa people in the East. By the time September happened, nobody could stop them. I mean, that did never happen again in Nigeria's history. We have to understand how it happened. Number one, and I know that's not today's topic, but it's not today's topic, but I'm going to speak on this. May that did never happen again in Nigeria's history. May we never have the kind of death. But let me explain to you the sequence of events. Because people jump to the end of the story as though that's where it started. January 15 was when the coup happened. By the way, and I've said it before, all leaders, political leaders from every part of Nigeria had somebody unalived except the East. Nothing happened in the East. The East was as quiet as anything else. But that's not even the point. You know, when that thing happened, everybody was happy, like, they breathed a sigh of relief. Until they discovered that nobody died in the East. And they began to question it. But guess what? They didn't do anything. They were still watching. Then Easterners in the North began to taunt the people. We've read it here before. They did it for months. They did it in the civil service, in the offices, in secretariats. They did it in the motor parks. They did it in the markets. They did it in the residential areas. They did it everywhere. These things are recorded history. You find what I'm saying right now. You find it in the book by Shehu Shagari. It's called Back to Serve. You find it even in Azikiwe's own book on the Civil War, on the origins of the Civil War by Azikiwe. You will find it in The Tragedy of Victory by Godwin Alabi Sama. You find all these things there. Whatever people are doing right now, the parents did it. Which is why I say, why do you want to repeat this bad thing? Like, the consequence is no good now. People now got angry when Iransi, they noticed that number one, it did not court martial the people. Number two, they were also hearing rumors that they were going to finish what they started in January. Number three, he now came up with Decree 34. Meanwhile, he was paying the salary of all these people that were in prison. He now came up with Unification Decree. People now got angry. That was in May. They settled it. In June, Ojukwu started talking about having his own nation. This is 66. Ojukwu's declaration of Biafra has nothing to do with the killings of... By the way, it was terrible what happened in the north. The killings of the Igbo was terrible, but that's not why Ojukwu declared Biafra. He declared Biafra. It discussed Biafra before that point. Check that book, you find it there. There are other books, by the way. If you also read Ojukwu's Rebellion and World Opinion by Nebo Graham Douglas, it's there. My Reminiscences by David Ejo. It will tell you how Ojukwu started planning in 64. I just feel sorry for people who had to die for that thing. It's his own ambition. It wasn't altruistic. It wasn't about collective good. Anyway, July 29 was when the counter coup happened. Abeokuta, Ibadan, Ikeja, Kaduna. They moved to other parts of the north. When that happened, folks in the east heard about it. In fact, folks from the north, Igbos from the north, were also moving back home because, of course, they were seeing their own people dying, especially officers. A lot of officers died. A lot. They were going back home. They told their own people that story. What did they do with that story? Remember, the Northerners did what they did because of what the Easterners did in January. The Easterners heard about what they did in August. And guess what they did? They now unalived the Northerners in the East. People don't tell you that part of history. It's true. You find it in the book called Crisis and Conflict in Nigeria by A.H.M. Green. You find it in the Nigerian Civil War by John Desenjo. These things are not made up. I'll also do another session on that stuff because the lies are too many. Hopefully somebody will be helped. That's what I'm trying to do. You now have people, unalive people in Onitsha, in Owerri, in Enugu, in Umuahia, Oboluafo, in Port Harcourt. people were being killed. Northerners were being killed in their houses, in some cases, on the streets, anywhere, in buses, on the trains. Bodies being dumped in Imo River. This happened. The news now got to Cotonou. Why? Because listen to the story. Broadcast it in French. The Cardinal guys got the signal, and now interpreted it in English and Hausa. The folks in Hausa now heard of the news of what was happening to their own people in the east. Before their own people from the east got back home, they began to kill Igbos. It had nothing to do with the fact that they were Christians. It had nothing to do with the fact that there was oil. It had to do with something deeper that started in January. And like I said, regardless, this does not justify what happened, but it's important to understand what happened rather than just go running on. Interestingly, she's the same person who gave a speech on the danger of a single story. When that now happened, everything was settled around October. Terrible episode, in Jesus' name. October, they had settled it. They had report. The Eastern region published a document. They titled it Pogrom. That's the title of the document. In that document, the Eastern region government said between 7,000 and 8,000 people died in the north. That's what the government said. Where did I find what I'm saying right now? The book by, 1 second, I have to mute somebody. I don't have time for Iregbe. There's a book by John de Senjo. It's called Nigeria Civil War. It's there. They said Eastern region published it between 7,000 and 8,000 people died. Bad news. This was October 1966. January 4, 1967. Thanks for the gift. January 4, 1967. January 4 and January 5, they had a Aburi Accord. That was in Ghana. When they got there, Ojukwu said there were 10,000 people who died. His own government, 2 months prior, said between 7,000 and 8,000 people. Some say 6,000 to 8,000. Ojukwu said it's 10,000 in January. For something where they don't finish for October last year. They don't finish everything. Everybody don't say, okay, terrible thing, may not happen again. Number went to 10,000 by January. By May of the same year, Ojukwu said the number was now 30,000. That number is what you will see in Achebe's book. There was a country. Is what you will see in Frederick Forsyth's book, The Biafran Story. That 30,000 number was the number that they started pushing everywhere. But guess what? That's not the end. That's the third figure. Remember the first one, 7,000 to 8,000. Second one, 10,000. Third one, 30,000. Then in 1969, Ojukwu did something called the Ahiara Declaration. Ahiara is a market. Ahiara Declaration. Ojukwu said there were 50,000 who died. Do you know how John de St. George described what he did? He called it an irresponsible number game. That was how he said he played an irresponsible number game by hyping the figures. 4 times. The same incident, 4 different numbers. That 30,000 that Ojukwu repeated before, because Ahiara was in 1969. So the lie don't pass. I mean, they don't repeat that 30,000 so much. That 50,000, they rarely talk about that 50,000 number. But that 30,000, they got stuck with that one. You find it in Achebe's book. You find it in Forsyth's book. Now you are listening to it being repeated by who? Chimamanda. When a child is growing up and he hears these things, do you think he asks, is it true or not? It doesn't. You are affirming to that child that is a second class. And let me say something with all due respect to folks from the East. Let me tell you something. There's nothing that makes anybody better than you in Nigeria. You are as Nigerian as anybody else. But guess what? There's nothing that makes you better than anybody in Nigeria as well. Every other person is as Nigerian as you, as anybody else. But guess what? There's nothing that makes you better than anybody in Nigeria as well. Every other person is as Nigerian as you. Everybody is just good. Just just live your life. You are everywhere already. Nobody's pushing you. Just enjoy. Just succeed. Thrive. Do well. Everybody hates me. Everybody. How can they hate you and still abhor you at the same time? You think it's because of the constitution? The reason you are able to live in different parts of Nigeria is not the constitution, no. It's because of the hosts. And the reason you will not be able to stay there is not going to be because of the constitution. It will be because of the host. So why do we want to have that? And I'll say this. The truth is, those who lost, one day I will get into it. The last time we discussed the war, I didn't discuss it, but one day I will talk about it. Those who lost the war were too proud to admit they lost, to the point where they would rather lie than acknowledge the fact that they lost. And that's why I say, I think that although I understand the mindset of General Gowon, I think they should not have said no victor, no vanquished. It would have been better. You know why? Because you'll be angry and then hopefully it will thaw like ice. It will thaw and everybody will be okay. But once you say, oh, we're all together, the other person now has opportunity to now continue to lie. Now, young people now grow up with the lies. After a while, you have Biafra. By the way, the lying did not start with Biafra. It started before Biafra. I'm just saying that I'm just talking about the one that Chimamanda is talking about. So use that one. You talk about it. After a while, you have Masob. Talk about it. After a while, you have IPOP. Talk about it. After a while, you have UGM. You have BGIE. Of course, IPOP will give you ESN. And you say you don't know how it happened. I'm just going to say that all of us, may God help all of us. Let's all be measured and let's all, people died. There's something I'm trying not to say. People died because when lives are lost, you can't just talk. But the crazy part is that the people who died, a lot of them died because Nigeria messed up. But most of them died because the Igbo leaders messed up. Do you know how many people died for lack of eating, for starvation? And do you know the reason for that? I mean, people have used that as well. Oh, we're starving. Awolowo said, Achebe wrote it in his book. A young person reads that book and hates her for no reason. Because Achebe wrote it. And when you hear people talk about what Awo said, they never quote him right, never quote him correctly, never. Why? One thing, I'm going to move on from this. You're trying to force blame on the Igbo, even though you were not part of those who lost a family. I don't think you understand. This is not me blaming Igbo. You don't get it. This is not me hating Igbo. If you understand the war, if you really understand the war, you will sound like me, unless you are totally dumb. Or you are too angry to be calm. Either of those two. If you are too angry to be calm, you curse people out. If you are totally dumb, you still keep thinking you are the victim. Or you think that anybody who has written is hating on you. I don't hate you. I am not against you. I'm not looking down on you. I'm not blaming you. In actual fact, your leadership should be blamed. But guess what? Something happened in 1948, and since then, the Igbos have been in that cycle. You know what happened? Azikiwe got in something. I'm not blaming Igbo. Stay with me. HNO Vashop, you will get it. Azikiwe did something. Folks in Lagos were clamoring for something about him. Everything started in 47, actually. They went to London. They got back. They asked Azikiwe for money. And then Azikiwe now said, oh, Azikiwe turned it around. Listen, this was there. Funlayo Ransome-Kuti was there. A number of people went with him. £13,000. They got back. Since then, the Igbos have been in that cycle. You know what happened? Azikiwe got in something. Azikiwe, I'm not blaming Igbo. Stay with me. Leadership should be blamed. But guess what? Something happened in 1948, and since then, the Igbos have been in that cycle. You know what happened? Azikiwe got in something. Azikiwe, I'm not blaming Igbo. Stay with me. HNO Vershop, you will get it. Azikiwe did something. Folks in Lagos were clamoring for something about him. Everything started in 47 actually. They went to London, they got back, they asked Azikiwe for money, and then Azikiwe now said, oh, Azikiwe turned it around. Listen, 1946, 47, they traveled to London, I had a conference, the Yoruba people that went with him, I think H.O. Davis was there, Funmilayo Ransome-Kuti was there, a number of people went with him, £13,000. They got back, asked Azikiwe for money. Azikiwe said 9,000 of that money was raised from the East. So what? You are the president of the organization. You cannot even be accountable to your own people. When I say your own people, I'm not saying Igbo. I'm saying people in NCNC. The folks, the folks who already had issues with him, based on what he done, they do since on top of their own matter, they took it up. They were now going back and forth in newspapers, right? It now got to a point. It happened for the first time, and since that time, it's still happening. Even right now, it just happened. People then criticized Azikiwe for being unaccountable and for embezzlement. The Igbos in Lagos now said anything against Azikiwe was a message against them. This was called the Lagos Press War of 1948. What you just did was what the Igbos did in 1948 by saying that when you speak against Azikiwe, you are speaking against the people. That's a very, very funny way to look at life. People were buying machetes to fight in the streets of Lagos. Why? Because Azikiwe was questioned. And politicians, they will insult themselves. They will say whatever they want to say to themselves. No, everybody was insulting each other. But you said it was now for you. So what I'm saying right now, I'm telling you what Ojukwu did without even going deep into it, and you say I'm blaming Igbo people. Do you not understand that Ojukwu is not Igbo people? And that if you are really an Igbo person and you really listen, read all the books from your side. I don't mind. But please, I beg in the name of God, read books from other people. Because if you read Achebe's book, There Was a Country, and you read Madiebo's book on Nigerian Revolution, and you read the only book that I think even comes close to anything is the book by Hilary Njoku, A Tragedy Without Heroes. Or you read then Akman's book, Struggle with Secession. But when you are done, I beg, and Frederick Forsai's book, because it makes people happy in the Eastern region, that's fine. When you are done, I beg, read from other places. Bengule, yes, Nigeria's 5 majors. Even that book, although he was trying to say it's not Igbo, but at least he was able to tell us the role that Oji and Okafor played. And that's why I tell Yoruba people as well, I like not to assume that everybody from a region is lying. I know, but I won't lie. Just about every book I've read, I've seen that heavy tribal loyalty. Even when it was wrong, every single thing that was most things that were wrong, there's a way they will write about it. Maybe just, which is okay. Which is why you now have gaps to fill. To fill that gap, you have to read other people. I'm not against your bias, but please read. Please. Especially from the Southeast. If there's anything I really want for you, oh Lord, God sees my heart. I want you to be free of this propaganda. You don't know how bad it is, until you read and until you see these things, you're like, there are books that you read that you curse your leaders. You have to hold yourself back and say, nah, that was a mistake they made. What makes this really bad is not that Ojukwu even did something, is that you guys think that it was right. And the crazy part is that you have never studied it. The only source you have is Radio Biafra. You have never, not once have you read anything about it. You have never read your own Igbo books. And that era of throwing up while why we struck, go and read it. Please read that book before you recommend it. It's not very good for what you think it is. But please study this thing from different side. Please. The war was a terrible thing, but it should never have happened. And the person that should be punished for it is one, interestingly, who got state pardon. The North have always massacred Igbos, usually unprovoked, and we keep getting reasons to justify this. That's the problem. You think it is unprovoked. When did the North start killing Igbos? 1945. Why? Listen, I'm not saying you can justify any of these things. You cannot. If one person dies, you cannot justify it. A soul is one too many. Like a death is one too many. One person dying is one too many. You can't justify it. But if you don't understand it, you will repeat the same pattern every time. That's the problem. So what you are doing right now is to say they did it with unprovoked. What do you mean unprovoked? Let me give you some examples. 1945 was the first time, at least that I know of, that the Northerners attacked the Igbos. Do I think it was good? Of course not. Do I think they have a right to do so? Not really. Can we justify it? No. But do we understand why it happened? Yes. If I ask you now, you say it is unprovoked. It was not unprovoked. There was a statement made in Lagos by a lawyer who was in the Legislative Council at the time. His name is Onyema. C.D. Onyema, Charles Onyema. He made a statement in 1945. That statement was the reason for what happened in the North, which is why I tell you people that this is that you guys insult people on social media. When it will happen to people on the ground, you will not be there. What did Onyema say? He said, and I quote, and he said this in Lagos, not even in the East, he said it in Lagos. Everybody heard it. He said, the Igbo domination of Nigeria is only a matter of time. He said it. People heard it. People got angry. Does that justify it? No. There are things you don't say. In a place where there's, and by the way, in case people don't understand, this was 1 year after the, may God have mercy on us. This was just 1 year after the agreement that was made by leaders in Igbo State Union. They made a pact in 1944. A year later, Charles Onyema made that statement. People heard it. They started fighting. Yorùbá sọ pé ọ̀rọ̀ báwo ni màá sọ ọ̀rọ̀ kí n kàn ló máa ń yọ obì lápò ọ̀rọ̀ náà lè yọ idà lápò. It depends on how you say it. Listen, it's not justifiable, but I understand why they would do what they did to you. If you slap me and I carry a club to hit your head, you may think about it and say, oh, that will not commensurate and all. That's just English. Your head is already swollen. Why just leave me alone and not slap me? It was tit for tat, but the tat was too big. That's why I say it's not justifiable. But I can tell you that you cannot be doing things and expect not to have consequence. Like you can't just insult everybody and say, oh, or just declare certain things and say nobody should say anything. Somebody asks, which book can you find that thing? How is a speech commensurate to killing? You definitely don't understand the power of words. You don't understand what words can do. So it's not just words. Why people have defamation suits? It's not just words. When you defame a person, it's not just words. When Nnamdi Kanu was on his radio saying, burn down Lagos, was it not just words? It's just words. Nnamdi Kanu on radio, burn down the place, burn it down. Rwanda, was not just words. Thank you. The entire earth, from my faith, it was created by words. You know what the Bible says? It says the things that do appear were made of things that do not appear. By words, God himself created the heavens and the earth. Listen, words are powerful. Oh. If you say terrible things, they will beat the hell out of you. You say, I did not beat you. Nobody cares. Emotional damage. See, when you... do you know when you hit people, that's physical. Emotional damage You can't see it, but sometimes it's worse. You know, when you insult a person to a point and the person just carry wood, knock your head, you say, no, just what I talk. The thing what you do to Ram in his own head, that is the payment for what you did. Like what you said, you insulted him to the point where the pain he felt, as far as is concerned, the way to make you feel that pain, maybe no fit talk like you, maybe no get mouth, he go just hit you. Why do you think I try to curb myself? Because even when I know I'm saying the truth, I'm still trying to not get to the point where you think I'm attacking. It may feel like an attack, but it's not because I'm attacking you. It's an attack because it's the truth. So I know the truth is heavy, so I have to find a way to say it. When I stop myself and just, it's not because I know if you talk, all the things that you guys do in the comment section, I will respond though. The point is that what Oyema said, if you think it's just words, let me tell you something. There's hardly any book. And this is to answer the person who asked that question. Where can you find it? You'll find it in the book by Graham Douglas, The Idea of Igbo Domination. You find it in Graham Douglas's book. You find it in My Command by Obasanjo. You find it in Just Before Dawn by Collier Motoshaw. Is there any book where I think the question is that you find it in Nigerian Civil War by John Desenjo. You find it in Crisis and Conflict in Nigeria by H.M. Kegri. The question you should be asking is that, is there any book you will even find it? You find it in Ao's biography. And then you now find, by the way, I think it's time to go to that biography now because we've been spending too much time on this news. You also find it in, I was going to say, I forgot now. There's hardly any book from that era that doesn't have that phrase. Now, by 1950, something else happened. Now, there was another crisis in 1953. Something else happened. Interestingly, what happened in 53 happened in Lagos, just like what happened in 45. The people who suffered for it were in the north. And to make it crazy, the Bible says that from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. What Onyema said was not just something that he thought, that it just came to him. It was a product of an arrangement that the Igbo State Union made in 1944. The arrangement that they were referring to in 1964 and also referred to what Onyema said and referred to what Okpara said has been too forward and ensure that it was the reason they were able to do what they did in federal civil service between 1960 and 1964. It wasn't because what's that what they merit? There was no merit in that thing. It wasn't because of merit. It was strategy. It was the reason they did what they did in January of 66. If you think January of 66 happened because some soldiers were angry, you don't get it. And I'm not going to talk more about it today because of time and because also, it's not time yet. What happened in January of 66, that action, may God forgive everybody. May God forgive everybody that, did Nigeria bad. May God forgive everybody. Because if you read some of these things, like I said that some things when I was crossing the word, something I did not talk about, it was intentional. We'll wait a bit. So we're going to do our work for a while. Then we'll come back to that. And then we'll see how it goes. Then we can put out some information. Kekere. Not. We can't put everything out there. With this mindset, we will justify wife beaters, pedophilic people, and all vices. Go around be moving mad. If you have common sense, I already said you cannot justify what happened. If you move mad, people will beat the hell out of you. That person, we can arrest him and deal with him, but you will be the one in the hospital. Why not have sense and move right? All right. This is not, if you think this is tribalism, you don't know what this means. This is just history. Just preach to help Nigerians at large. That's what I'm doing. What do you think I'm doing here? What do you think I'm doing? I'm trying to help Nigerians at large. How do you help people without the truth? Listen, just be thankful to God that we're able to share this thing as respectfully as we can. I'm not saying I'm doing this may not be the best, but it's my best. But God will help me to make it even better. If you, the way you're talking in the comment section, if you know 1/10 of what we have read, you'll be cursing everybody out. You would have cursed all of us out. I'll call us tribalists. But don't worry, you cannot know it because you don't like responsibility. All right.